Alright, so the first and foremost thing that you're having issues with is you're having issues with the depths of field. And so what I mean by that is basically the 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 big aspect is that you want to separate this stuff. So the first thing is get your hand. I'm just gonna grab the generic here. Nothing perfect, but you're gonna grab your hand. All right, and you put that to a new layer. So I'm just going to copy that. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your base body here. And really quickly put that to a new layer as well. Okay, so now I've got pretty much the um, three layers going on. And then what you really need to do is you need to define the layer set. So what that means is basically um, I'm just going to pick like this dark brown here, and simply just by pasting that, you see how the character now steps out from the background. You can still have that bright light and stuff like that, but the problem is with that bright light um, being being so ominous around the rest of the background, you're really blending the whole figure in together. So that's the first thing that you need to do. The second thing that you need to do is define your edges more. The problem you have with your edges right now is there's really no definition. There's no difference between edges, and that's what they call a soft edge. So instead, what you want to do is you want to grab in there the highlights. If that's what you want as a strong backlit character, you need that to really push those highlights in there. Get that sharp edge going on, and that'll help you out a little bit more too. So that's the next thing that you want to really work on. The next thing too is, if you're doing this like you'd be watching through a camera, one of these is going to be in focus, so you probably want your center figure in focus, and then the foreground hand is fine. You can have that a little bit out of focus, so you can blur that if you want, or not put as much detail in there. But if you want both of those in focus, again, you have to do kind of that same issue where you have to take parts of the figure, and I'm just going to grab this to kind of, you see now how this starts popping out a little bit more. It's not necessarily the whole answer, but it separates your foreground and background a lot more. So that's a big issue. The next thing I think you just need to start working on is really tightening up your paint strokes, and that's going to give you what you want for um, essentially the whole figure. Um, Honestly, go to start getting some reference off of this. So what I would suggest is either use the Bloodborne reference, or I always go to what do they call it, like the Goodwill and stuff like that. They always have great costume supplies there, and it doesn't have to be a perfect thing, but you can really quickly get some cool ideas and tape things together and get that idea going. So the next thing is you want to define your edges more, and what that means is basically, so if your um, figure here has the light, it's going to have the light come back here, and then it's going to stop because it's around the collar. Same thing here, you're going to kind of see that stop. Um, you want to get the folds. So like if this is rolling around, so I'm just going to draw on a new layer, just kind of show you the note of it. So you want to think about the form. So if your form is like this, like that, then you want that form to kind of build up and start completing that idea. So here you want dark, and then as it gets towards this lighter gray, that's when you want, and you just start brushing these together. And now I'm not using anything special, I'm just using a simple chalk brush with the opacity and flow on there. And so building up that aspect of your figure, um, and how you want that to basically, you know, be created. Like here, you've got the idea of your what do you call it, straps here, but again, get that idea of, you know, foreground background. You know, it's just a matter of darkening some elements and, you know, cleaning up the idea of, you know, the way things should be painted. I think you have a cool painterly face, and you're putting an emotion on there, which most people don't really do. They have always the same, you know, flat expression. Um, you're starting to get the form here, but if you want the detail on the rest of your objects, you know, like your jacket, your hands, that's really what you need to start, you know, doing, is you need to put that kind of detail from your face into the rest of the body. Um, and that's pretty much, you know, where you're going wrong. It's looking at more reference and things like that. That's really what you need to kind of start going with. Um, I mean, stay away from your blacks, which they're, you know, I get you're trying to go really dark with the blacks, but instead use, you know, the dark blues. Um, it actually helps them on the layer, but if you use the dark blues, that's going to give you a dark shadow like you want. And, you know, if you want to add more detail here, look at even the wrinkles on your own hand, you know, um, things like that. The way the nails work, you know, and you can put highlights in there, you know, just stuff like this, and that'll actually accent, you know, the detail, on your foreground element. So I think, like I said, you have a painterly, you know, idea. I think you have decent color choices and stuff. I think the big thing is you just need to start defining your shapes a little bit more. You know, especially when you get into, you know, like this guy here, you know, defining that hat, you know, and the actual shapes of that hat. And granted, this is just me really quickly kind of sketching, but you see how defining that shape now separates that shape, and then from there I can actually go in and, you know, start putting in, and you can see how even though the background is not defined, it's these straight lines that are really pushing your foreground background elements. You know, stuff like this, and that's going to define the foreground shape a lot more. And so you're gonna see more definition within your character, separating the elements and such. But again, it just boils down to practice. Like you've got, like I said, you've got good color shading, you've got, you know, a good base concept. I think you just need to, you know, start getting in there and get the details and refine your work. Um, you know, right now this is 100% right here, and so I don't know how big your actual composition is, but, you know, don't be afraid to zoom in there and, you know, put in a little bit more painterly effects, similar to, you know, what you would be doing with a, um, you know, like a one size brush and things like that. You know, just putting in these little things like this and defining how everything's put together. Those are the things that you want. And if you want even more detail than that, then what you do is you start going in and, you know, you'd start putting line work and defining your edges more. Um, you know, defining your edges is going to really help push out a lot of that stuff. And that's really where you want to kind of move the next level of detail. Um, You know, and if you're worried about leather, just grab some photo reference. I mean, you've got a good matte finish here, but what I would do is for that leather texture, um, you know, I think the painterly strokes are okay, but again, realize that the painterly strokes on here are fine, but depending on how detailed you want to get, you know, you could even put, you know, the twist on the strings, um, and you know, it's simple things like that that'll add a ton of detail, and it shouldn't detract too much. I'm making these a little bit too dark, but it shouldn't detract much from what you're trying to show the audience. So, you know, things like this, you know, just add texture and stuff. So again, you know, it depends on the kind of point and focus that you're going for. So I hope that helps.